Hi everyone, hopefully you can all see and hear me. So thank you for coming along today. This is this month's webinar where I'm going to be basically covering an overview of a new sort of content and marketing framework that we have here in Google that I think is going to be of interest. And then we're going to be joined a little later on by Michelle, who's going to be coming in to talk about performance display and just give an overview on that and why it's important for you guys to be aware of it. So without further ado, I will just get straight in. The whole point of these is to be short and snappy as well. So let me see. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this. So I just want to start by talking about the traditional sales funnel and just basically tell you why it's officially dead. So this is a very linear sales funnel that was created in 1898. So that date alone should scare all of us if we're still referring to this today. And whilst it makes sense when you look at it, the whole point of it is back then when it was, I suppose, a way less complex society and when there was way less information and going to a shop and buying something was a lot more straightforward. This is what retailers would have deemed relevant when it came to getting eyeballs, bringing them down the funnel through the different stages and converting them into actually buying something from you. So most of you will be aware of this. For those not, we basically start off with awareness, moving into consideration, into preference, and then obviously really getting that person engaged to want to take action and buy from you, and then ideally helping them come back for more, where they become loyal customers. And essentially, it's linear, and it really doesn't make sense in 2016 when we go to look at this. This is a bit more like it. So as you can see, it's not at all linear, it's complex. What sort of changed the traditional sales funnel, to simplify, was basically the internet. So there's just so much more information, so much more complexity, so much more noise in general compared to back in 1898 when that traditional framework was in place. So just some insights into what we actually have to deal with nowadays. We've got peer reviews, you've got competitive alternatives, you've recommendations from friends. Word of mouth was always a popular one. However, nowadays it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's social media, it's community message boards. So there's so much more information out there that could confuse people and also influence them to choose a particular brand over another. Obviously with the internet, with the internet, you're able to buy online from different countries. You're able to look at different products in different markets that wouldn't necessarily be available in your own market. And then let's not forget user-generated content as well, which is, you know, huge. Just look at YouTube, the second biggest search engine on the planet. If you type in iPhone 6 review, you're going to come across different people reviewing it, giving their opinion on it, and there's no shortage of content out there to influence a buyer. So I think what's really important about this slide is just to sort of show the complexity that we are dealing with in 2016. And, you know, this is essentially what we have to get used to. So the answer to this is, and why we're sort of here today, is to talk about a content and marketing framework to try and think about your audience as opposed to the different steps of advertising, such as awareness and consideration, to really think about your audience and match the solution to them. Let's not forget that we've got cross-device conversions. So, you know, I've been working in digital advertising for about 6 years now, and something that we're only starting to get to grasp with is cross-device conversions and attribution. So essentially what I'm talking about there is we now have mobile phones, we've tablets, and we've desktop computers all still playing a part in the sales funnel process. This wasn't around in 1898 when the traditional sales funnel was created. It's still very difficult to track in a linear fashion what's actually happening. In fact, it's pretty much impossible. With enhancements and features like store visits, that's going to get easier and better. But this is just to simplify that not only are you dealing with essentially an unlimited amount of information on the internet, but you're also dealing with multiple devices with which people can access that information. And that is very difficult for marketeers to sort of prove what's working and what isn't. So the framework I'm going to be talking about has 3 key pillars. The first is, as I said, it's customer centric. We're more concerned with the audience as opposed to the actual steps of a funnel, so to speak. Another reason why I really like this framework is the fact that it's not just digital. It's applicable to all media types and channels, whether that's TV, radio, press, obviously digital as well, but it's agnostic to all channels really. The third is it's a fair and honest measurement. You're creating content for users and you're aligning it to your business's objectives and KPIs, and then you're measuring the impact of that depending on what part of the framework it's at. So here it is in a nutshell. This is typically the main components of the See, Think, Do, Care framework, and this example in particular is for a home furnishing retailer. So if we look at the top one where it has C there, essentially what this means is it's the largest addressable qualified audience. So if you're a home furnishing retailer, this is anybody with a home potentially, okay? The next step that we're talking about is the Think section. So this is the largest addressable qualified audience with some commercial intent. So this could be anyone with a home who would be looking to change their current furnishings, but they're not quite sure who they want to go with yet. So they could be in the information seeking phase online or in their research offline. Then the Do section is a pretty critical component, and it's probably what most of you guys can resonate with today. This is essentially, search marketing. It's the largest addressable qualified audience with loads of commercial intent. So anyone who's looking for new beds or bedroom furniture right now. So if you go to Google and you type in something like, home furnishing, that's quite a generic, wide, open query. It could be interpreted in different ways. Whereas if you go onto Google and type in something like, buy 5-seater couch in brown now, that's a very sort of commercial query with a lot of intent behind it. And that's essentially what we in digital do. It's about matching and investing in the areas that make sense to what we're trying to achieve as a business, depending on what part of the framework we're actually going after. And then the last component is care. So this would be your current customers. So if you're a home furnishing retailer, this is everyone who's bought from you. One thing I like about this framework is it emphasizes, or the care section is someone who's purchased from you twice. I think that's a pretty good way to find out if a customer is loyal or not. Fair enough, buying once, it could be lucky, but if they come back again and go through the process and they buy from you again, it's probably safe to say they're a fairly loyal customer and they're pretty happy with you. So an example of someone in the care section would be any previous customer of homeware or furnishings, so to speak. So what that actually looks like when we layer it with, a traditional sort of funnel, we're not really reinventing the wheel here. All we're basically doing is, as opposed to thinking of the challenges, whether that's building brand awareness or driving consideration, et cetera, we're thinking about the audience. So, what we in Google try and do, we try and really understand what our businesses want to achieve. And then we match solutions against those objectives to help you guys win. Because if you win, we win. So again, the C section, it's the largest addressable qualified audience. This would be, getting people who aren't familiar with your brand to be familiar with your brand. But, if you're explaining this internally within your organization and someone wants to embark on a campaign to get as many new customers as possible, it's worth highlighting, okay, this is very much in the awareness phase. This is the C stage of the framework. It's probably going to be more expensive to go after that because they're not already educated or familiar with the brand. Likewise with the Think one, it's similar to driving consideration. And with the Do one, again, lots of commercial intent there. It's about acquiring efficient traffic and converting those users. And Care, again, current customers with 2 commercial transactions where you hope to sort of build loyalty and re-engage with them. So personally, I really like this framework. It's a really easy way to simplify. And when I'm talking to my customers, I understand and fit the different objectives they have into each of these sort of steps. And maybe you guys will get some value out of it as well if you think that way. So you're essentially just becoming more customer centric as opposed to what's the challenge, here's the solution. And you think a bit more holistically about the entire market and the different channels that are at play. I'm now going to pass you over to Michelle Massey, who's going to be taking you through dynamic marketing.
Hey everybody, I'm Michelle. I'm an account manager here in Google, and I also lead on the display network for our vertical within the UK. Today I'm going to take you quite briefly through dynamic remarketing, mainly what is best practice, and also just to tie it into the framework that Andreas was talking to you about. This sits very nicely within that do piece, and it also goes quite nicely with care as well. What we know about remarketing is that users are more likely to convert if they've already visited your website, and we've seen huge success with remarketing for search and also for remarketing, dynamic remarketing. And what's really nice about dynamic remarketing, obviously, is that we're using products from your feed. So your potential customers or even your previous customers will get to see products that you know that they're interested in because they visited your site. What we're going to go through very briefly today is best practice for settings, bidding, the type of ads you can see, and what we would consider best practice also on mobile and data feeds. So first things first, I get asked a lot about what are the best audience lists. This is what we see works best for retailers. Not to make things too granular as well. If we just look at having a list of people that have been on your site and looked at a particular category, so say for example, you sell bathrooms. If you want to say, right, I'd like to remarket to people that were looking at our showers, for example, that would be a category. Or you may just say all site visitors because you know they're quite likely to convert. Then we'll have a look at product viewers. So that would take a deeper dive, say it's a specific type of tap that you're looking for. Then we look at cart abandoners, and we see a really, really high conversion rate for this particular audience list. These are customers that have gone onto your website, they've put a few items in their cart, and then for one reason or another, they've decided not to purchase. Now, that could be because they want to compare to other sites. It may just be something like they don't have their card on them at the time. So reminding these potential customers that they have looked at products on your site and they're ready to be purchased is really, really good, and they're very likely to convert. Then we have this loyalty list, as we like to call it, and these are customers that have previously converted on your site. So in this case, we know that they like your product, we know that they've purchased your product, and they're very likely to purchase again. So in terms of structure and settings, best practice would be, again, not to go too granular. We would say to target all languages and all locations. The reason we say this is not because you will start targeting people who aren't able to purchase your product in a different country, but because we're remarketing to people that have previously been on your site, which means that they could be on holiday right now and you still want to remarket to them. It's just that their IP address hasn't changed, and we don't want to miss that. So you don't want to limit your audience, and you're only going to pick up people that have previously visited your site anyway. So there will be people who are in the correct locations and also in the correct languages. We would say optimize your ad rotation for conversions. What we usually say with bidding is when you're starting a dynamic remarketing campaign, start an enhanced CPC, wait for 15 conversions on that campaign, and then move to either a target CPA or a target ROAS model. Definitely speak to your account manager for this. We have display specialists in-house that can also help with this optimization and making sure that you're getting the correct target CPAs and ROAS for your campaigns. Definitely automate your frequency cap, and then we would say always opt into mobile, as especially actually this kind of do phase and the care phase of this structure. This is when people could be researching, and we found a lot of customers research on mobile first. So why miss them by not opting into mobile? Next up, a little bit deeper on the automated bidding. So like I said, hitting enhanced CPC first, but when you get there, make sure to move to target ROAS or target CPA. What this does is the automated bidding looks at your conversion history, and it also looks at thousands of audience signals, and it sees what made these conversions successful. So we can see that a particular ad, a particular size converted to a particular type of audience, and that's the ad that will then be served to the person that fits within that audience for you. Moving on to the actual type of ads. Now, for best practice, we would say choose all ads. All ads, we're super customizable now. We have 11 HTML5 sizes. We have over 15 templates at this point, actually. Why not have all ads would be our question. If you're using automated bidding and you're using target CPA or target ROAS, we already know, and the system knows where your ads are most likely to convert, and it will serve the ad that is most likely to convert. So make sure that ad is available. Also, always pair up with dynamic text ads to make sure you're maximizing your reach. They're super easy to set up. You can now actually use Google Web Designer to make your own dynamic image creatives as well. And I'd recommend talking to your account manager if you need details on how to use that. Here's an example of what those Web Designer creatives can look like. We can also do more customizable ones. If that's something that you need, again, contact your account manager. We have a great team in-house that can help you with customizable dynamic ads.
Great stuff. Thanks, Michelle. So just on that point as well, anyone who's using Google Shopping today has a feed. You're more than likely going to be really concerned with performance. You probably look at last click conversions quite a lot, and you probably get really good results from Google Shopping anyway. So just one thing to add when it comes to dynamic remarketing, it uses your Google Shopping feed also. So it's not going to take any additional resource or work on your side to get it up and running. And you will see really great results from it. It is maybe not on a par with search, but it is definitely a performance-based product that gets additional conversions much closer to your typical CPA that you'd be used to seeing. So that's pretty much it. Just to give a very quick overview from a display perspective. So we've got the C section, which relates to affinity audiences and custom affinity. So affinity audiences will be people who are they have a particular affinity with a certain topic. This is an option that's available when it comes to display advertising with Google. And likewise with custom affinity, if you want to sort of make your own bucket, your own specific audience who you want to target, you're able to do that as well. If we categorize the next section then, which is think, so if you remember, this is more the consideration phase. This is people who are, maybe considering doing something, but they're not quite sure what they should do just yet. We have got in-market targeting. So these are people who we've deemed are in the market, they're researching, they're very close to pulling the trigger and purchasing from someone, but maybe they haven't decided just yet. So it's makes a lot of sense for you to be there in front of them if you have something that they want. And likewise with similar audiences, if you have people who have converted on your site before and you want to target similar audiences that you may not know about already, this is an additional targeting option that we can have. And then in the do section, as Michelle just went through, we've got dynamic remarketing, very much a performance-based conversion platform for display advertising. And then also we've got most recently shoppable TrueView, which is particularly nice because it sort of sees the convergence of brand and direct response coming together as one on what would typically be a brand awareness platform, i.e. YouTube. So it brings that sort of direct response approach to a brand ad. For example, you can essentially put in an overlay if there's a product reference in the video, and then a user can then click on it and go through and purchase it if they wish to do so. And then last but not least, we've got the care section. So very much concerned with loyalty, re-engagement. This would typically be customer match, which if you haven't heard about it, it's a new feature that came out recently where you can upload first-party data, i.e. email addresses that you guys have acquired, and you can do it confidentially, and you can then retarget to those users using display advertising also. And it also makes sense to have an audience strategy when it comes to that care piece. So a lot of people tend to be quite focused on just acquiring new customers, converting them as quickly as possible, and then we tend to forget about those guys who could easily come back and purchase from us again. And that's where a good audience strategy comes into play, actually both for search and display. For search, it's commonly called remarketing lists for search ads, and for display, it's just audience remarketing. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a number of different ad formats that would sort of reflect through the framework depending on what the objective is of the particular advertiser in question at that moment in time, which consists of image ads, text ads, dynamic ads, lightbox ads, which is a really nice lightbox engagement piece, and then Gmail ads as well. Okay, so we told you it was going to be snappy and short, and we hope you enjoyed it. So that's pretty much it for today. We are going to be having another one each month, and we're going to keep you posted on it. And you're also going to be receiving our monthly newsletter as well. So thanks very much for joining us. If you have any questions about any of the content you encountered today, please just reach out to your account team, and they'll be more than happy to help you. Thanks very much.